Today, I want to talk about work and the good life. Now, on a naive view, you might think that the role work plays in living a good life is just that you work in order to get the money you need to live a good life in your time off or your vacation time. On this view, work is just an instrument that you use to buy the things you need to live a good life. And there's a couple of reasons why some philosophers have worried about this picture of work and the good life. One of them comes from Karl Marx. Marx says, look, think about a job where you're just there, just doing the work in order to earn a paycheck to go off and live your good life, okay? Now think about the way that you're going to relate to that work. Marx's fear is that you're going to become alienated from the things that you're doing. So if I go to a factory and I just count beans every day, and I'm just doing this so I can get a paycheck so that I can spend my weekends on the lake, the work that I'm doing is going to alienate me, right? It's not going to be very personally engaging or fun or exciting. And so one proposal that philosophers have traditionally offered us is that we should think about our work as part of what it means to flourish or live a good life. So virtue ethicists, in particular, think work can be an essential part of living a good life. But there's a couple of challenges to this. The first one is this. So here's a case in which work contributes to my flourishing or well-being. I notice that my family needs something. And so as a family, we work really hard in order to accomplish some goal, right? Our house is a bit run down, and so we work hard on fixing it up. Or our yard is full of leaves, so we work together, right? This work, because it's part of a common goal that I have with a particular community of people, can be very meaningful, right? Even if it's, manual labor, somewhat difficult, can be very meaningful for this community that I'm a part of. Okay, so one question, and now we're getting back to Karl Marx here, is whether work, or jobs more generally, can actually play that role in our lives as a whole. So here's the particular challenge. In a capitalist society, companies, corporations, places of business, places that we would work at, places that might employ us, typically think of themselves as having one or at least one primary job or responsibility. And that is to maximize profit for the people who are investing in it. So in general, this might not be an obstacle to finding work that's enjoyable. I can work at a company doing something that I love, sort of fulfilling my passions, right? And in that way, I can find work that allows me to live a good life, insofar as it doesn't block me actively. But if a company has one and only one goal, and that goal is not a goal that each of its employees is aiming at as a community to achieve and flourish together, then it seems like it can't provide work of the sort that we might need to flourish. Concrete case or concrete example comes to us from Airbnb. There's a recent article in the New York Times about how Airbnb has long billed itself as a family, as a community, as an organization that's aiming to create a kind of value in the world that can unite all of its employees into a single community, right? So in a way, Airbnb is an experiment. Can a corporation in a capitalist structure provide the kind of work that we might need to flourish, right? The key comes when we realize that when things get bad for such a company, so in this particular case, when the pandemic hit and people stopped staying in strangers' homes for health reasons, for fear of contracting a virus or whatever it is, what happens to that community? And in this particular case, what happened is Airbnb had to lay off a lot of people. If you're not bringing in revenue as an organization, you've got to cut costs somewhere and lay off some people. Now, this sort of perhaps shows that the way Airbnb was conceiving of itself as a family, as a community, was a bit of an illusion. Because again, revert back to the family example. If my kids are not bringing in a profit, if we're struggling as a family, one option I don't have is to just lay them off. You can't fire family, at least, as part of your family. You can't do that. Instead, you've got to struggle through. You've got to set new goals, and whatever it takes, you've got to reach those goals. So if we think of the ability to set these common goals, these common goods, and achieve them as a unit, as somehow what unifies a community and allows that community to flourish through work, then you might just think it's not possible for companies or corporations to provide that kind of work for their employees or to build that kind of community. Now, maybe this is a bad thing, right? Because if work is sort of necessary to flourish as a person, and capitalist corporations cannot provide this, then we live in a society or a structure that's creating obstacles or blocking our flourishing. On the other hand, you might think, no, we just shouldn't look to companies or corporations to play this sort of role in our lives. We should instrumentalize the work that we do there, but we should make sure that we have other work, maybe volunteering, or maybe work that we do as part of a religious community or as a family unit. There are other ways of working, and maybe we need to make sure that we're investing personal time and attention into those ways of working as well. So this isn't necessarily a critique of capitalism, unless you think the only way to function and to flourish as a human being is to have work at a place of business, at an employer that provides this kind of meaning in life. On the other hand, it does really stretch us to think about what goes into flourishing and how we should incorporate our work, whatever sort of that covers, into our good lives.